Be me Everly, living my best life, or so I thought. Got my own place, decent job, a solid circle of friends who get it. My best friend is Lily. We're on the same wavelength about pretty much everything that matters. We see the world for what it is. We understand the dynamics. One night, maybe a month or two ago, we were at my place. It was a Thursday, I think. We were just chilling, drinking some wine. She was scrolling through her phone, and she lets out this exaggerated groan. I lean over to see what she's looking at. It's a post from some guy, just a wall of text. The gist of it was him complaining about being lonely, how hard dating is, how nobody gives the nice guy a chance, the usual script. Lily just rolls her eyes so hard, I think they might fall out. She said something about how exhausting it is to see men complain all the time. They have literally everything handed to them, and they still find a way to feel victimized. I totally agreed. It's a constant performance. This whole concept of male pain seemed like the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. Anytime a guy acts possessive, or emotionally stunted, or just generally useless, it's not his fault. Oh no, it's because of the immense pressure society puts on him. It's because he's not allowed to show his feelings. Give me a break. We started riffing on it, just making jokes. My main thing was how it's all so abstract. When women talk about their problems, it's concrete, unequal pay, fear of walking alone at night, medical issues being dismissed by doctors. When men talk about their problems, it's this vague, philosophical angst, this deep, unspoken burden of being a man. It felt like they'd watched a bunch of sad movies and decided that was their personality. Lily pointed out that it's also a way to deflect from any real criticism. You try to talk about toxic masculinity, and they hit you with, well, men have the higher suicide rate. Checkmate, I guess. We're not allowed to talk about our issues because they've found the one trump card. The conversation went on like this for a while. We were getting more and more worked up, fueled by wine and righteous indignation. It felt good, you know? To be so in sync with someone, to feel so completely, utterly right about something. That's when the idea started to form. It didn't come all at once. It was more like a slow burn. I said something like, I wish we could just prove it. I wish we could put them on the spot and have them explain their so-called pain. They would just crumble. They wouldn't have any real examples. It would all be, I feel like, and it seems that. Lily's eyes lit up. She loved the idea. She called it a social experiment, a little roundtable discussion, and we knew exactly who our test subjects would be. My brother, Owen, and her brother, Brian. They were perfect. Owen is my older brother. He's the strong, silent type. Or, at least, that's the role he plays. He's always seemed so stoic. Never complains, never really talks about his feelings. To me, he was the living embodiment of performative masculinity. He probably had a whole universe of pain bottled up inside him that was actually just, like, regular daily stress. The kind everyone else deals with without making it into a Greek tragedy. He works some boring office job, lives in a small apartment, doesn't really date much. He always looks tired. I figured it was just part of his whole brooding persona. Bryant, on the other hand, is different. He's more outgoing, more of a typical guy's guy. He'd recently gotten out of a long-term relationship. Lily told me he was always complaining about it, but in that vague, non-specific way. She didn't get me, or it was just a lot of drama. He was the perfect example of a guy who thinks his minor relationship woes are some epic struggle. So the plan was set. We'd invite them over for a casual evening. No pressure. Just drinks, snacks, good vibes. We'd get another friend to come along as a neutral observer. Then, once everyone was relaxed, we'd start our round table. We'd guide the conversation toward their lives, their struggles. We wouldn't be aggressive. We'd be curious, empathetic even. Use all the right language. Tell me more about that. How did that make you feel? We were convinced that once they started talking, their arguments would just fall apart. Their pain would reveal itself to be nothing more than entitlement and a bruised ego. We'd expose the whole concept as a sham, right there in my living room. We were so excited. It felt like we were doing something important. Not just for us, but for the culture. We were investigative journalists of the soul. The next day I texted Owen, kept it super casual. Hey, me and Lily are having a few people over Friday night. Brian's coming too, just chilling out. You should come. His reply was almost instant. Okay. What time? No emotion, no questions. Classic Owen. I interpreted it as him having nothing better to do. Lily texted Bryant and he was immediately on board. Of course he was. The rest of the week, we planned it like a military operation. We came up with a list of leading questions. We decided who would ask what. Lily was going to handle the dating and relationship angle, using Bryant as the entry point. I was going to tackle the broader societal pressure stuff, using Owen's stoicism as my target. We felt like puppet masters, pulling the strings of a social drama we had written ourselves. It felt so empowering. Friday finally came. I spent the afternoon cleaning my apartment, making it look extra cozy and non-threatening. I put out some nice cheeses, crackers, a bowl of olives. I picked out a few bottles of decent red wine. Everything was designed to create an atmosphere of safety and trust, a space where they would feel comfortable opening up. Our other friend arrived first. She was always quiet, happy to just observe, the perfect witness. Then Lily showed up, buzzing with energy. We went over the plan one last time in hushed tones, like spies before a mission. We were ready. Around 8, the doorbell rang. It was the brothers. They walked in, bringing a gust of cold autumn air with them. Bryant was his usual self, smiling, making a joke about how we were becoming real adults with our cheese platters. Owen was just Owen. He gave a small nod, took off his jacket, and immediately looked for a place to sit where he could be out of the way. He looked even more tired than usual. The dark circles under his eyes were like bruises. I remember thinking it was such a deliberate performance. The world-weary man act. We all settled in. I poured everyone a drink. For the first hour or so, we kept the conversation light. Work, sports, some dumb movie that just came out. It was all part of the plan. Lull them into a false sense of security. Bryant was easy to talk to. He carried most of the conversation for the two of them. Owen just sat there, nursing his drink, occasionally nodding or giving a one-word answer. He seemed a million miles away. I could see Lily getting impatient. She kept catching my eye, giving me a little nod. It was time. I took a deep breath. Phase 2 was commencing. Lily made the first move. She turned to Bryant, her expression a perfect blend of casual curiosity and sisterly concern. She asked him how he was really doing since the breakup. He shrugged. I'm fine. Moving on, you know. Lily pressed him. But it must be tough getting back out there. Dating apps are a nightmare. She was teeing him up. This was his chance to launch into a rant about how unfair modern dating is for men. But he didn't take the bait. He just said, yeah, it's not great, but whatever. It is what it is. He wasn't giving us anything to work with. Lily looked at me, a flicker of frustration in her eyes. I decided to switch tactics and turn to Owen. This was my part of the plan, the direct approach. I softened my voice, trying to sound as sincere as possible. Owen, you seem really quiet tonight. Everything okay? He just looked at me. His eyes were so empty. I'm just tired, he said. This was it. The opening I was waiting for. I leaned forward, putting on my best therapeutic face. You always seem tired, Owen. You work so hard. Does it ever feel like there's this huge pressure on you to provide, to be the strong one, to never show weakness? I was practically quoting from a textbook. I laid the trap perfectly. All he had to do was step in it. All he had to do was say yes. Then I could begin my gentle deconstruction of his perceived burdens. He was silent for a long moment. He looked down into his glass, swirling the wine around. The whole room was quiet, waiting for his answer. I could feel a smile tugging at the corner of my lips. I had him. He finally looked up, not at me, but at a spot on the wall behind me, and he started to talk. But it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't what we had planned for at all. He didn't talk about his feelings. He didn't talk about societal pressure. He just stated facts. He told me he looked tired because he was working 2 jobs. My heart did a weird little stutter. 2 jobs? Since when? He said his day job at the office ended at 6. Then, from 7 to midnight, 5 nights a week, he worked at a warehouse on the other side of town. He was a stocker, loading and unloading trucks. He said it was physically exhausting, but the pay was decent. I just stared at him, completely speechless. This was not part of the script. This was real. My brain was scrambling, trying to fit this new information into my existing framework of who he was. It wasn't fitting. I think I managed to ask, why? My voice sounded strange, thin. He took another sip of his wine. He still wasn't looking at me. He explained that Dad's business had been struggling for a while, a lot more than anyone knew. It got really bad about a year ago. They were behind on the mortgage for the house we grew up in. The bank was sending letters. Foreclosure was a real possibility. He told me Dad had finally broken down and told him everything one night. He'd never seen Dad cry before. So Owen went out the next day and got the second job. He'd been doing it for almost a year now. Every week, he gives almost all of his paycheck from the warehouse to Dad. He said they're almost caught up now. Maybe a few more months and they'll be in the clear. He ended by saying they didn't want to tell me because they knew I'd worry, and they didn't want to burden me. The room was so quiet I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. I couldn't breathe. My carefully constructed experiment, my clever little round table, had just been obliterated by a single, devastating truth. My brother wasn't performing stoicism. He was just surviving. His silence wasn't a symptom of toxic masculinity. It was a shield to protect me, to protect our parents. He was carrying this colossal weight on his shoulders, and I had no idea. Worse than that, I had judged him for it. I had sat there on my comfortable couch, in my safe apartment, sipping wine, and I had judged the dark circles under his eyes as a character flaw, a philosophical choice. The shame was instantaneous. It was a physical thing, a hot wave that washed over me from my scalp to my toes. My face was burning. I looked at Lily. Her mouth was slightly open. The smugness was gone, replaced by a look of pure shock. She didn't know what to do. Her part of the script was useless now. In a desperate attempt to regain some control, to steer the conversation back to familiar territory, she turned to Bryant. Her voice was a little shaky. "Wow, Owen, that's a lot. I'm so sorry." Then she looked at her brother. "I guess your problems must seem pretty small in comparison, huh, Bryant?" It was a terrible thing to say, a clumsy, panicked attempt to minimize and dismiss. Bryant, who had been listening intently, just gave this dry, humorless laugh. It was a horrible sound. "Small? I don't know," he said. "Depends on how you measure it." And then he told his story. He talked about his ex-girlfriend, Emily. I'd met her a few times. She seemed sweet, artistic, a little flighty maybe. He said when they first got together, he was crazy about her. He thought she was the one. She was an artist trying to make it, which meant she didn't have a steady job. He was happy to support her. He believed in her. He was working a good job in sales, making decent money. He paid for their apartment. He paid for all the bills, all the groceries. He paid for her art supplies, for the workshops she wanted to take. He told us he didn't mind. He loved her, and he wanted to see her succeed. He thought they were a team, building a life together. He was saving up for a ring. He said over the last year, things started to change. She became more critical of him. Nothing he did was right. He worked too much. He didn't work hard enough. He was too tired when he got home. He wasn't emotionally present. He didn't support her dreams enough, even as he was literally funding them. He said he tried everything. He suggested therapy. She refused. He tried to plan date nights. She was always too busy or not in the mood. He felt like he was walking on eggshells in his own home, the home he was paying for. Then, about a month ago, she left. Just packed a bag while he was at work and disappeared. She left a note. The note said he was holding her back, that his lack of ambition was suffocating her creative spirit. It said she needed a partner who was on her level, emotionally and intellectually. 2 weeks later, he found out she'd moved in with her life coach, a guy he'd been paying for her to see for the past 3 months. Bryant paused and took a long drink of his wine. He looked tired, too, but it was a different kind of tired than Owen. It was a soul-deep weariness. He then said the worst part was the finances. He had given her a credit card in his name for emergencies and art supplies. He checked the statement after she left. She had maxed it out. Thousands of dollars on clothes, spa days, expensive dinners, and gifts. Gifts he now realized were probably for the life coach. He was now stuck with all that debt, on top of the rent for an apartment that was suddenly too big and too quiet. He finished his story by looking directly at Lily, then at me. "So yeah," he said, his voice flat. "My problems are probably small. Just a broken heart and a mountain of debt from a woman I gave everything to. But it feels pretty big to me. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't just quiet, it was heavy. It was filled with the weight of everything that had just been said. It was filled with the wreckage of our stupid, arrogant little experiment. I felt sick. These weren't abstract complaints. This wasn't male angst. This was real life. This was betrayal. This was sacrifice. This was pain. And we had planned to mock it. We had set this whole evening up with the express purpose of laughing at their expense. My friend group, my ideology, my entire worldview, it all felt so cheap and hollow in that moment. It was built on theories and articles and online discourse. It had no room for the quiet, devastating reality of my own brother's life, or the cynical, heartbreaking reality of my best friend's brother's life. Owen finally stood up. The movement was slow, deliberate. "I should get going," he said. "Early start tomorrow." He didn't sound angry. He didn't sound hurt. He just sounded done. He walked to the door, put on his jacket. He paused with his hand on the doorknob and looked back at me. For the first time all night, he really looked at me, and he just said, "Get some sleep, Ev." Then he was gone. Bryant stood up a moment later. "Yeah, me too." He didn't say goodbye to Lily. He just gave a slight nod to the room and walked out. The door clicked shut behind him, and the finality of that sound was deafening. The three of us were left sitting there. The cozy living room suddenly felt like a crime scene. Our other friend, the quiet one, was the first to move. She stood up and said she had to go, her voice barely a whisper. She couldn't even look at me as she left. Then it was just me and Lily. She was staring at the table, at the half-eaten cheese and the mostly full wine glasses. "I didn't know," she said. It was all she could manage. "Me neither," I replied. My voice was hoarse. There was nothing else to say. Our grand victory, our moment of intellectual triumph, had turned into the most humiliating defeat of our lives. She left a few minutes later. The goodbye was awkward. We couldn't look each other in the eye. The shared ideology that had been the bedrock of our friendship now felt like a source of shared shame. I was alone. I stood in the middle of my living room for what felt like hours. I couldn't bring myself to clean up. The remnants of our failed party felt like an accusation. Every book on my shelf, with its bold declarative title about female empowerment and patriarchal structures, seemed to be mocking me. They were just words, theories. They had nothing to say about a brother working himself to the bone to save his family home. They had no explanation for a good man being financially and emotionally ruined by someone he trusted. My entire belief system was a fortress built on sand, and the tide had just come in. For a long time, I just stood there. The silence in the apartment was absolute. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. Eventually, I started to clean up. I moved like a robot, stacking the plates, gathering the glasses. Each object felt incredibly heavy. I took the cheese plate back to the kitchen and scraped the leftovers into the trash. It seemed so decadent and stupid now. A prop in a play that had gone horribly wrong. I washed the wine glasses by hand. As the warm water ran over my fingers, I kept seeing their faces. Owen's expression wasn't angry. It was worse. It was just blank. Like he was too tired to even feel anger towards me. Bryant's face had that bitter, cynical twist. The look of a man who expected the worst from the world and was proven right again. I dried each glass carefully and put it away. When I was done, the apartment was spotless again. But it didn't feel clean. It felt sterile, haunted. I walked over to my bookshelf. All my favorite authors, all the thinkers who had shaped my worldview, stared back at me. Their words had always felt like armor. Now, they felt like a cage of theories that had kept me from seeing the truth right in front of my face. I picked up a book, one about deconstructing patriarchal norms. I flipped through the pages. It was full of academic language, charts, statistics. It all felt so meaningless. Where was the chapter on a brother secretly working himself into the ground for his family? Where was the analysis of a man's trust being used as a weapon against him? There was nothing. Just broad strokes, generalizations, and an enemy that was always abstract and faceless. But the enemy wasn't some vague system. Tonight, I had been the enemy. I had been the one dismissing his pain. I had been the one who was ready to mock and trivialize. Me, his sister. I put the book back on the shelf. It felt like a foreign object. I went to bed, but I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling while their words played on a loop in my head. Owen saying, "I work a second job." Bryant saying, "It feels pretty big to me." Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the look on Owen's face when he said he didn't want me to worry. He was protecting me. While I was planning to use him as a pawn in my ideological game, he was actively protecting me from a harsh family reality. The shame was a physical weight on my chest. It made it hard to breathe. I started thinking back, replaying years of memories through this new, horrible lens. I remembered all the times I'd called him to complain about some minor inconvenience, a bad day at work, an argument with a friend. He always listened. He never interrupted. He'd just let me vent. And I never once stopped to ask him how he was doing. Not really. I'd ask, "How are you?" as a greeting, not as a question. I thought about last Christmas. Our whole family was together. Owen looked exhausted then, too. He fell asleep on the couch in the middle of the afternoon. My aunt made a joke about him getting old. We all laughed. I felt a fresh wave of nausea. He wasn't napping. He was crashing. Probably the only real rest he'd had all week. I remembered his birthday a few months ago. I asked him what he wanted. He said he didn't need anything. I thought he was being difficult. I ended up getting him a gift card to a coffee shop. So practical, so thoughtless. He probably used it to buy coffee to stay awake during one of his night shifts. The more I thought, the worse it got. Little moments I hadn't even registered at the time now came back with perfect clarity. The way he'd always insist on paying when we went out for a rare meal together, even though I probably made more money at my one job than he did at his. The worn-out soles of his work boots that I'd noticed by the door last time I was at our parents' house. His hands, which always seemed to have new cuts and calluses on them. I'd assumed it was from some DIY project. It was all there. The evidence was everywhere. I was just too busy looking for proof of my own theories to see the proof of his reality. The sun came up. I hadn't slept at all. I got up and made coffee, my movements still slow and heavy. I checked my phone. There was a text from Lily, sent late last night. "Are you okay?" Just that. I stared at the 3 words for a long time. Was I okay? No. But what could I possibly say to her? Our entire friendship was built on the foundation that had crumbled last night. Our late-night talks, the articles we'd send each other, the shared jokes. It was all tainted now. I texted back, "No, you?" Her reply came a few minutes later. No. There was nothing else to say. The days that followed were weird. I felt disconnected from my own life. At work, I'd sit in meetings and hear the usual office chatter, and it all sounded like it was coming from a great distance. My friends would talk about their dating app frustrations, and I couldn't bring myself to engage. Their problems, which once seemed so important, now felt trivial. I avoided talking to Lily. We exchanged a few more texts, but they were short and awkward. We both knew something was broken. The thought of having one of our old conversations was unbearable. What would we even talk about? My main focus was Owen. I wanted to talk to him. I needed to talk to him. But what could I say? Sorry I'm a horrible sister? Sorry I'm a blind, arrogant fool. It all sounded so inadequate. After a week of agonizing, I just picked up the phone and called him. It was a weekday around noon. I hoped he might be on his lunch break. He answered on the second ring. "Hey." His voice was flat, not cold, just tired. "Hey, Owen," I said. My heart was pounding. "Do you have a minute?" "A few," he said. "I'm on my break." I took a deep breath. I wanted to apologize for the other night. "You don't have to," he said immediately. "Yes, I do," I insisted. "It was awful. I was awful. I had no idea what was going on, and I acted like I knew everything. I'm so sorry." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the faint sound of traffic in the background. "It's okay," he said finally. His voice was a little softer. "I know you didn't know." "But I should have known," I said, my voice cracking a little. "I should have noticed. I'm your sister." "You're busy," he said. "You've got your own life. Don't worry about it." He wasn't forgiving me. He was dismissing it, dismissing me. He was treating me the same way he treated everything else, as a problem to be managed and minimized so he could get back to the real work. It hurt more than if he had yelled at me. Is there anything I can do? I asked, feeling helpless. I could help with money. No, he said, and this time his voice was firm. I've got it handled. We're almost there. Okay, I whispered. Listen, my break is over, he said. I have to go. Okay, Owen, talk to you later. Yeah, you too. He hung up. I sat there holding my phone, feeling completely hollowed out. I had apologized. He had accepted it, sort of. But nothing had changed. The distance between us felt wider than ever. My apology didn't fix anything. It was just a small, selfish act to make myself feel better. It didn't give him back the year of his life he had sacrificed. It didn't erase the exhaustion from his bones. A few weeks later, I met Lily for coffee. We had to. We couldn't just ghost each other forever. The meeting was incredibly awkward. We sat there, stirring our drinks, avoiding eye contact. We talked about work. We talked about the weather. We talked about anything and everything except what we were both thinking about. Finally, she looked at me. I talked to Bryant, she said. How is he? I asked. He's okay. He's working a lot to pay off that debt. He's been really distant. She paused. He said he doesn't want to talk to me about it. He said I wouldn't get it. She looked down at her coffee cup. He's probably right. I didn't know what to say. He was right. We wouldn't have gotten it. A month ago, we would have analyzed his situation through our lens. We would have talked about how he fell for a damsel in distress trope. We would have said he enabled her behavior by not setting boundaries. We would have found a way to make it his fault. Now, all I could see was a guy who got his heart broken and his trust betrayed. It was that simple, and that complicated. We finished our coffee in near silence. As we were leaving, Lily turned to me. Are we okay? She asked. I don't know, I said honestly. And I still don't. Our friendship hasn't ended, but it's changed. The foundation of smug certainty is gone, and we haven't found anything to replace it. The easy intimacy is gone. Now there's just this careful, quiet space between us. It's been a few months since that night. I see my brother more often. I don't pry. I don't ask him how he's feeling. I just show up. I bring him dinner sometimes. I help our parents with chores around the house. I try to lessen his load in small ways, without making a big deal out of it. He seems to appreciate it. He doesn't say much, but he seems a little less tired. The other day we were watching a movie at our parents' place, and he almost fell asleep on the couch again. Instead of laughing, I just went and got him a blanket. He gave me this small, almost imperceptible nod. It felt more meaningful than any conversation we've ever had. I don't know what to call myself anymore. The labels I used to wear so proudly feel ill-fitting and dishonest now. I haven't thrown out my books, but I don't read them the same way. They're just one part of the story, not the whole thing. The world feels more complicated now, less black and white. I went grocery shopping last week. In front of me in line, there was a man in paint-splattered work clothes. He looked to be in his 40s. He looked exhausted. He was buying a cheap frozen pizza, a carton of milk, and a small single-serving cupcake. A few months ago, I wouldn't have even noticed him. If I had, I would have made a dozen assumptions. I would have constructed a whole narrative about him based on my theories. But this time, I didn't. I just saw a tired man buying himself a small treat at the end of a long day. I didn't know his story. I didn't know his struggles or his sacrifices. I realized I didn't know anything at all. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like a beginning, not an end.